Hey everyone, welcome to Area 616 and to Day 4 of Luke Cage Week. Not long ago, Marvel announced the casting of Ben Barnes, whom you may know better as Prince Caspian in the Chronicles of Narnia films, in a villainous role. Though they didn't say who he was playing, according to strong rumors, he will portray Bill Saint, the son of a villain who was introduced in the 2004 Punisher movie, Howard Saint, where he was played by John Travolta. But that got me thinking, who else could the Punisher fight in this series? I'm excluding Howard Saint as it's kind of obvious if this rumor is true, and also I doubt he'd be the main villain, being as how he was already the villain of the movie. Number 6. The Kingpin. This will be more of a cameo than a main villain role, but after the Punisher and Wilson Fisk met in prison, I'm sure we'd all love to see more. They both promised to kill each other the next time they met, and with the way their fight went in the prison, it's hard to know just who would win. But I'd love to find out. Number 5. Bushwhacker. Bushwhacker was basically a Catholic priest who ended up joining the CIA, who outfitted him with a robotic arm, and he eventually goes freelance and becomes an assassin. Minus the robotic arm part, this could make for a good villain in The Punisher. Like Fisk, I doubt he'd have the main villain role, but he might work as an assassin hired to kill Frank by whoever the main villain turns out to be. Number 4. Barracuda. First appearing in The Punisher Max, issue 31, Barracuda is a gangster who the Punisher has met in combat a couple of times. He was killed in The Punisher issue 4 in 2008, but he could still be introduced in the Punisher's Netflix series. Number 3. Tombstone. Lonnie Lincoln, known on the streets as Tombstone, was born with an albino condition that made his skin pale and sensitive to sunlight, and another genetic abnormality that prevents his voice from being able to rise above a whisper. Whether or not all that would make it depends, but it's certainly true that Tombstone would make for a great villain for Frank Castle. Despite his problems, he grew up to be much taller and stronger than his peers, learning to push them around, and eventually becoming a hitman for the mob. Number 2. Jigsaw. Jigsaw, or Billy Russo, was an assassin who was hired by the DaCosta crime family to kill Castle. He didn't succeed, and he was later followed back to a Maggia-owned nightclub by Frank Castle, where he, of course, massacred pretty much everybody, except Russo. He was instead thrown through a glass window, which tore his face to pieces. Surgeons sewed it back together, but it ended up looking like a horrific Jigsaw. Since then, Jigsaw has had a grudge with Frank and has tried to kill him numerous times. Jigsaw was actually the villain of a 2008 Punisher Warzone. However, considering how many bad reviews that movie got, I'd say he didn't leave an impression. But he is a famous Punisher villain, and one who deserves to take a crack at the MCU's Frank Castle. Number 1. The Maggia. This seems like the most likely candidate to me. The Maggia is a crime organization made from 3 different crime families. The Silvermane family, led by Silvio Manfredi, whose father, Joseph, appeared in Agent Carter Season 2 as the leader of the Maggia. The Hammerhead family, led by Hammerhead, or Joseph, who is also a classic villain of Spider-Man. And then there's the Nefaria family. Now in the comics, its leader, Count Lucino Nefaria, is a pretty wealthy Italian guy who also knows magic and has fought the Avengers a couple times. However, if you remove the magic and Avengers part, he's a pretty perfect Punisher villain. This kind of criminal organization seems like the perfect fit for a Punisher Netflix series to me. They would all most likely be stripped of any superhuman powers they possess in the comics, but could still have references. For instance, perhaps Hammerhead would have his metal super strong skull removed, but maybe he has earned that nickname from having a particularly thick skull and often headbutting his enemies. These guys are so perfect for a Netflix show, I'd honestly be surprised if they weren't the villains. And if they do, almost everyone else on this list could still be in it, as much smaller criminal groups trying to compete with the power of the Maggia. So that's my list of Punisher villains I'd like to see in his Netflix series. Do you agree? Is there anyone I missed? Leave a comment letting me know. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time on Day 5, the last day of Luke Cage Week.